Hello. Hello again. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm Bob Continetti, Senior Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, and I'll be your moderator for this Faculty and Research Town Hall. The fall quarter is now well underway, and once again, we have brought together a group of panelists to provide updates on the continuing evolution of our operations during the COVID-19 pandemic and to answer your questions. Some questions were submitted during registration, and please today feel free to use the Q&A window to submit additional questions for our panelists. Due to our time limitation, we will not be able to get to all of your questions, but we will log the questions as they come in and post answers on the Return to Learn website with the link that is being pasted into the chat. Today's webinar has live closed captioning available in two ways. First, you can click on the closed caption button at the bottom of the screen and select Show Subtitles, or you can also click on the link that is being pasted into the chat. With no further ado then, I'd like to introduce co-host and Executive Vice Chancellor Elizabeth Simmons for some welcoming remarks today.
Thanks very much, Bob. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this webinar town hall. I just wanted to express my gratitude on behalf of the entire senior leadership for everything that you've been doing to keep the university going through yet another quarter that is impacted by COVID. I really appreciate seeing so many of you now here on campus in person, doing research, interacting with students, supporting colleagues. I know it's a long haul. Thank you all for sticking together, sticking with us, and supporting one another. I'm going to stop there because I know we have a lot to talk about today. So I'm going to turn things back over to Bob Continetti.
Thank you, EVC Simmons. Next, we will hear from our other co-host, Vice Chancellor for Research, Sandra Brown.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be with you, and I will echo my appreciation that you've just heard from EVC Simmons. We are really pleased that with all the safety guidelines on campus, we're able to have our research operations back fully on track. We're going to share several important new requirements. There are federal requirements and internal requirements, as well as some resources for students and faculty today. But I do want to just take a moment and mention that this will be my last joint town hall with EVC Simmons before I step down from my Vice Chancellor for Research position at the end of the year. I will hold another research town hall to create an opportunity for everyone to meet the next Vice Chancellor for Research before the end of this term. But I want to thank everyone for their tremendous effort, engagement, and support over the years. Thank you. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Brown, and thank you for your service. Next, I would like to introduce Senate Chair Tara Javidi.
Thank you, Bob. Hello, everyone. My name is Tara Javidi. I'm the chair of the UCSD Division of the Academic Council. I will be extremely brief. My goal is to provide context for policy and guidelines that EVC Simmons in a little bit will describe, and the role that the Academic Senate has played to get to that framework. First of all, I want to sincerely thank the following 5 committees of the Academic Senate: the Educational Policy Committee, the Undergraduate and Graduate Councils, the Committee on Faculty Welfare, and the Committee on Diversity and Equity. I believe that all of my colleagues here will sympathize with the super tight deadline and timing that quarter system puts on us in general, especially when it comes to scheduling for winter and spring in the classes. So while the official Academic Senate business normally does not start until mid-October, these committees started working on the issue of instructional modality as early as September 1st, and I want to really thank them for that. And The second thing is I would like to summarize the Academic Senate's decision and most importantly our philosophy, because I know that the policy details that EVC Simmons will describe will be further detailed than I thought it would be useful to reiterate the policy philosophy from the Senate's perspective. Early October, Educational Policy Committee determined that continuing to allow any course to be offered remotely without a clear R designation does not reflect the current state of the pandemic, nor does it acknowledge the faculty's overall commitment to return to primary in-person high-quality instruction that UCSD is known for. However, EPC also recognized that there is a continued need on behalf of some faculty to offer some non-R designated courses remotely for the remainder of the academic year. Therefore, the committee approved a limited term exception to the policy on distance education courses. They also recognized that the decision about course modality during the COVID period and in general pandemics are not exclusively issues about pedagogy or academic quality. There are aspects related to faculty welfare and equity and diversity that fall outside the bounds of EPC purview and must be considered by both the Academic Senate as well as the administration. So the committee, in consultation with Committee on Faculty Welfare and Committee on Diversity and Equity, worked closely with EVC's office as well as the undergraduate and graduate councils at the Academic Senate to develop, again, the guidelines and the framework that EVC will in a minute go through. My goal, as I said here, is to emphasize, though, that while the details and the timelines might seem complex, the aim should be understood to be simple. And basically, the aim of the Academic Senate remains to support the mission of the university in providing the highest quality education while acknowledging the diversity of experiences faculty have had and supporting, most importantly, those faculty with continued critical health and family care concerns. So at the end, I would like to remind my colleagues that the Academic Senate is a great place for you to get engaged and participate in shared governance. And in particular, our website is a place that you can learn about the modality change, but also other Senate initiatives. And with that, back to you, Senior AVC Continetti.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Javidi. Now I'd like to introduce our first presenter today, Dr. Chip Schooley, Professor of Medicine, and he'll talk to us about the state of the pandemic. Chip?
Thanks very much, Bob. Good afternoon, everyone. We have another good report today. Things are continuing to go very well on campus, as I'll discuss. In the US, we've had the misfortune of continuing to see our deaths accumulate since our last meeting. We're close to 750,000 deaths, although the number is beginning to come down. In California, next slide, we're seeing that the peak that we had at the end of August is continuing to quiet, and that the epidemic in the US has shifted to the northern tier along the Canadian border and in Alaska. There has been concern about this raised about what will happen when people go back indoors, and questions have been raised about whether this reflects colder weather. I think in this particular case, it's not just colder weather, it's also these are very unvaccinated states. And I think that as we head into winter with the very high vaccination rate in California, we were not going to see this kind of a sharp rise that they're seeing in these areas. Next slide. In San Diego County, things are continuing to perk along at 300 to 400 cases a day. The hospitalization rate is reasonably stable in San Diego County in the upper right-hand panel. And if you look in the lower right-hand panel, you can see that at UC San Diego Health, we are still running a census in the low 20s with most people who are in the hospital being non-vaccinated. We have a few vaccinated people in the hospital, most with underlying conditions. And the vaccines have kept people, for the most part, out of the ICU. You can see that none of the 5 people in the ICU have been vaccinated. So the vaccines are continuing to do a good job keeping the case rates down and particularly keeping people out of the ICU. Next slide. The epidemiology on our campus is looking quite good. If you look on the left-hand panel, you can see that the case rate among our students and our employees are 8 to 10-fold lower than in the county as a whole. You can also see that when you look at the trends on the right panel, again, things are moving in the right direction with the occasional cases often on campus, but campus employees doing extremely well. Next slide. This shows you one of the daily, next slide, one of the daily dashboards we look at every day. And this is kind of very much what we've been seeing the last 3 weeks or so, with a case or two often on campus, very few employees, and really a very good follow-up on the right in green with contact tracing by Dr. Anderson and her team. Next slide. Most of this is due to the fact that our campus has done a great job in getting vaccinated. I want to congratulate the employees, the staff and faculty for getting us to 93% of people, at least with one vaccination among our campus employees. Health sciences employees are at 96% vaccinated, and our students are at about the same rate. So this is a tremendous accomplishment, and I think is one of the reasons we're doing so well here at UC San Diego. On the county scene, San Diego remains one of the most vaccinated counties in the country. And because our campus is embedded in the county, our case rate is very positively affected by having this quiet rate around us. Next slide. As we speak, the CDC's American Council on Immunization Practices, Committee on Immunization Practices, ACIP, is meeting to discuss the recommendations about Pfizer boosters for children between 5 and 11. The discussion, the vote's actually being held simultaneously with this call, but we expect that to be approved today. When that's approved, you'll be, as you'll see, people at any age above the age of 5 will have access to the Pfizer vaccine. And people who are over 65, who are immunocompromised, or who are in high-risk occupations, and by that we mean people who are going to be exposed to people who may not be easily vaccinated, education, or who have significant implications if they get infected, healthcare, boosters are recommended, so that with the way the California Department of Public Health is interpreting this, people at UC San Diego are eligible for vaccination with the Pfizer vaccine. Boosters for the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine are available in the same populations and recommended 6 months for those who go for boosting after the initial round of 2 vaccines has been obtained, except for those who are immunocompromised, who should get their booster shot basically now if they've only had 2 prior immunizations. And everybody who got the J&J vaccine should be boosted. The J&J vaccine has been available only to adults, and its longevity is not as good as the mRNA vaccines. For those of you who are vaccinated more than 2 months ago with the J&J vaccine, we would recommend being boosted. You can be boosted with the J&J vaccine, but I personally think it's preferable to get boosted with the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine. You'll get a better result in terms of immunogenicity. And lastly, there's been a lot of discussion, next slide, about the what to do with how to deal with people who've been previously vaccinated. This is a CDC morbidity and mortality weekly report that came out last Friday that refutes one of the urban myths that people who have natural immunity have better protection from disease than people who have vaccination. In this relatively large study of the CDC, people who were vaccinated with one of the mRNA vaccines had about 5-fold better protection over a 6-month period than those people who had natural infection. People who have natural infection should still be vaccinated because it will reduce your risk of becoming infected by another 50%. So please, if you've been infected and are relying on natural immunity, please also get vaccinated. And then to close, as I was speaking, the CDC, the ACIP notice flashed across my screen, and the vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds has been approved by the CDC and will be available next week. I'll turn this back over to Dr. Continetti.
Thank you, Dr. Schooley. Now we'll hear an update on the COVID-19 vaccine compliance and safety requirements and the flu vaccine mandate from Dr. Angela Shosha, Interim Executive Director of Student Health and Wellbeing and Chair of the Vaccination Mandate Work Group.
Thank you. And that's great news, Chip, to hear that the pediatric population is going to be able to be vaccinated. So we have some updates of what's been going on campus. Because of the really low viral activity and what's going on in our community around us, we've been able to add some more freedom to campus operations. One of the first things is a more liberal approach to indoor spaces that in the indoor spaces, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say regardless of vaccination there, but let me clarify that. Forgot to delete it. Vaccinated individuals, specifically vaccinated, now may remove their masks briefly to eat and drink. This includes in cubicles, not just in enclosed offices. If though you have an enclosed office, regardless of vaccination, you can also remove your mask for eating or drinking. So the big change is allowing vaccinated individuals who are in some of these more open office spaces to briefly lift their masks for eating or drinking. In the outdoor space, we are still encouraging masking in crowded situations. And if you are a vaccinated employee or student who's been exposed, we ask that you mask in the outdoor spaces to minimize any risk of transmission to others. But you're allowed to actually be on campus now if you've been exposed and you're vaccinated. Our students who are living on campus are now in phase 2, which allows them to take off their masks in the common areas. We went into this a couple weeks ago, and it seems to have had no negative effects. We are asking our unvaccinated students who leave campus, though, and are engaged in unmasked activities, let's say they're visiting family, actually return and mask for 7 days, monitor their symptoms, test upon return, and on day 5. So these are the precautions we have in place regarding masking. Next slide. Testing. So we've made some progress here as well. For everybody, regardless of vaccination status, we want you to test if you have symptoms. If you have a wastewater signal in a building that you've been working in or living in, please test, regardless of vaccination status. Similarly, if you've been exposed, we want you to test upon notification and day 5. Surveillance testing, though, has been changed. No longer do the vaccinated individuals need to do the weekly surveillance testing. We are requiring unvaccinated individuals to test twice a week, no less than 3 and no more than 5 days apart. This will continue in through the fall quarter and in all likelihood in the winter quarter. Next slide. Testing is readily available. You can do self-administered tests at the Price Center, or you can also have an individual do your test for you if you're not comfortable doing that. The vending machines, though, are readily accessible. We have 20 sites available. Employees, as long as they've had one test at the Price Center or health system, can use the vending machines, as well as students. You need your campus ID to release the kit. It will have a $1 on, but that comes off immediately, so there is no cost. The kit will have instructions, swab, and a testing vial. What's really important is that you have downloaded the UCSD app on your phone and that you capture the barcode on the vial. This is how your sample is identified. If you don't successfully capture that barcode, we will not know who the sample belongs to. Once you've obtained your sample, you drop the sample in the kit for the samples and return the clamshell, because we are recycling those, the clamshell that the kit comes in. So those are pretty valuable and we want to recycle those. Your results will be back within 24 hours. Right into, sometimes even same day, it'll go into your My UCSD chart or My Student chart. So please take advantage of the vending machines. During the breaks, the vending machines will have a 1-day pickup during fall break, and throughout the campus break during winter, we'll continue to have vending machine being open for everybody with pickups on a regular basis. Next slide. Exposure. Here's a big change here from a while ago. So in the unvaccinated community, if you are exposed, you still need to remain off campus. Okay, residential students are being moved to quarantine housing. You need to test upon notification day 5. You need to monitor your symptoms, do the daily screener. You can return to campus after day 7 monitoring, day 5 negative test on day 8, except for employment functions. As an employee, Cal OSHA only lets you return as an unvaccinated individual after 10 days post-exposure, which means you can return on day 11. The big change is for the vaccinated individuals. You are now allowed to continue to work to be on campus. We've added some extra safety recommendations, though, in that we want you to mask in the outdoor spaces, that you eat alone. If you are a student who has a roommate and sharing a double, we will move you just to protect that other individual. But you can still come to class, you can still participate in research, you can still move around. Again, you do the testing upon notification of exposure in day 5, and you continue to monitor symptoms. Next slide. Okay, daily screener. We've made some nice progress here. We revised it and simplified it. We've integrated information regarding your symptoms and exposure, which we always had, but now we've added your vaccination status and your compliance with testing, so that we will result in one of 3 options. Green, you're good to go. No new symptoms, no exposure. You're up to date with either testing or any requirements there. Everything's fine. You may get a red sign. The red could be you have new symptoms, or you're unvaccinated and you've been exposed, or you've not been compliant with your testing and you're an unvaccinated individual. That will result in a red thumb. You'll get a yellow thumb if you're a vaccinated individual and you have no symptoms and you're doing well. You can come onto campus with those extra precautions of masking in the outdoor spaces and also eating alone. So you'll be seeing these thumbs regularly. They're really working well. Students, just a reminder, who are student employees should go in through the student pathway because their health information is under as a student, not as an employee. So managers, it will all be integrated. If you have student employees, you'll be able to see their status, but we want the students to go in as students, not as employees. Next slide. Flu vaccine. So we do have a mandate for the flu vaccine. It is November 19th. For health employees, it's even a little bit sooner. We are offering flu shots, and we want to make sure that it's ready, available. Please know that you can also get it through pharmacies, through primary care providers. There's ready access. The mandate is managed a little differently for health employees and students. You actually will put your vaccination in self-entry into My Student Chart or My UCSD Chart unless we gave it to you. If we gave it to you at the health system or the price center, it's already in your record. There's nothing you need to do. To decline the vaccine, health employees fill out a Qualtrics form. The link is right here. Students can let us know through My Student Chart. For campus employees, we're not using Qualtrics. Instead, you're using your single sign-on and you attest to being vaccinated or to decline. One of the important parts here for campus employees, even if we gave you the vaccine at the health system or the price center, and it's in your health record in My UCSD Chart, we still want you to go on to single sign-on. That is the process for campus employees. Next slide. So in case you want to get vaccinated, you can do it again through your primary care provider, a local pharmacy, as well as health system and the price center. It's appointment only. Just follow the link here, go to flu.ucsd.edu, plenty availability. If you want a flu vaccine, it's there for you. And to Chip mentioned the boosters. Boosters for educational employees, is we've just got word that we're going to be able to give this to our students as well. We'll be offering booster shots at the Price Center in mid-November. So keep your eye open for those booster appointments as well. Next slide. I think we're going to hand it back.
Thank you, Dr. Sosha. Sorry, there's a little video issue there, but now I'm going to turn it back to Executive Vice Chancellor Elizabeth Simmons to talk about winter instruction.
Thanks very much, Bob. And Senate Chair Javidi gave a wonderful introduction to the underlying philosophy of what the Senate and administration have been trying to accomplish and how the Senate came up with its policy approach. So we had a process for fall quarter, and Senate and administration agreed that for winter quarter, we wanted to make the process improved in various ways, not just for winter, but for spring and the future. And the 4 things that we wanted to focus on were building in-person presence, which really supports student learning in the classroom and outside the classroom, to be sensitive and compassionate to the situations that our instructors, including faculty in all series, graduate assistants, other instructional assistants, may find themselves in, so that people know that the university cares about their well-being. Reduce staff workload where possible, avoid excessive bureaucracy, and then make the process more student-centered so that everything would be all set up before the students registered for their courses and there wouldn't be last-minute surprises. Now, if we go to the next slide, you will have seen what happened. This is exactly what Senate Chair Javidi mentioned. And so we disseminated a notice to the campus letting people know what Senate had decided and how we were going to implement it. And if we go to the next slide, I wanted to give you a bit of update on what happened. We created a web form for people to submit requests for course modality change. So there was one way to submit all of the necessary information all at once. We had just under 200 requests come in by the deadline, and they've been reviewed jointly by AVC Carlos Jensen and either the undergraduate council or graduate council, depending on what kind of course it was. And they've really tried to process those very quickly. And that has given some shared responsibility, shared oversight, and I think a shared understanding between Senate and administration of what our instructors have been facing and encountering and how to best support them. We did build in an opportunity for an appeal of the first decision, since that's something that gives people confidence in the process, that they will really be heard and understood before a completely final decision is taken. And again, everything's going to be settled before the course schedule is published tomorrow, and then students will begin enrolling next week. And I think that's, oh no, one more slide just to mention that we'll have the same process for spring, but we'll have more time for the implementation, so things don't feel so rushed and the process should be more familiar. So thanks everybody for cooperating with the new process and helping us do our best to support people who are having some particularly challenging situations. Thanks, Bob. Back to you.
Thank you, EVC Simmons, for that important information. Next, we will hear from Vice Chancellor for Resource Management and Planning, Gary Matthews, about new campus mobility initiatives. Gary?
Thank you, Dr. Continetti. Thank you all for being here. I see over 300 of us, and it's rewarding to have you participate. We thought today we'd give you a general overview of some of the mobility initiatives that have occurred and are underway. As you all know, campus-wide safety and security are major elements of our focus for the next several years. And we've developed a helmet program that has already distributed 500 free helmets. We have another 1,000 on order, and it's available to students, faculty, and staff across the campus. And we really believe that the increased opportunities for micromobility also require us to be safe in terms of using them. We have a new partnership with Ford Mobility to provide not only integrated transit and micromobility solutions, but also a better understanding of the number of trips and the modality used. To date, we have over 85,000 shared micromobility trips, which adds up to about 75,000 miles traveled thus far. We've also been able to identify geofencing to manage speeds, parking, and unauthorized vendors for electrified scooters and bicycles. Next slide, please. We have certainly had a transformation of the campus related to construction. We've got the Gilman Bridge, the Mesa pedestrian bridge that provides great access for our graduate students and students living in the Mesa complexes to access the core campus. And the Voight overcrossing is in process of being improved and should continue through until about the end of January. So we'll see more designated bicycle lanes, and most importantly, as the light rail ends its construction phase, we'll see a return to some sense of normalcy along the roadways and bike paths. Next slide, please. So transit, we've been working closely with MTS, and they have a new program. It's called Fast Pass. And what they're attempting to do is give people free access to light rail if they register by November 14th, and they'll have an activated pass throughout the month of December. So it gives people an opportunity to actually ride the new San Diego light rail Blue Line starting November 21st. There will be some major transit changes going forward. Let's go to the video. So the Blue Line starts service every 15 minutes at the end of November, and we're really proud of that service. A little overview of what it's going to look like. Probably one of the best rides in town that you'll have an opportunity to see from the operator's cabin. Now, this is a ride that is normally about 15 to 20 minutes of headway, and you're going to take it in less than 2 or roughly 2 minutes. So many of you may have seen the vehicles on the tracks. They've been testing for well over a month now, and they've had a number of special rides. And this video is certainly special for me because I've been on this journey for well over a decade, and to see it come to fruition will make a major difference in how people come and go to the campus for special programs. And I urge you to give your colleagues, friends, and teammates an opportunity to participate in the free pass program that MTS is starting within the month. And I've had some questions because this is the second time I've shown this. No, it's not going to run that fast, but a 15-minute headway is great, considering that sometimes you'll sit in traffic near Balboa for 10, 15 minutes at certain times of the day. We'll have 2 stations on the campus, the Central Station, and we will have one for the La Jolla Medical Station. And actually there'll be a third, which is part of the VA hospital. So there'll really be 3 stations serving the campus. It'll give us great opportunity for access to the campus for programs, for education, and we're optimistic that we'll even have folks find some affordable housing along the route. We're talking now to folks that may be developing some housing in the next several years. So great progress. There's many changes on the campus, and this is certainly one that has taken well over a decade, but we're happy to see it arrive. So thank you, and that's the end of our ride today. Thank you.
Thank you for that exciting news, Vice Chancellor Matthews. We have indeed been waiting a long time for the trolley to come. Next, I'd like to introduce Dean of the Graduate Division, James Anthony, who will give us a few announcements from the Graduate Division. Dean Anthony.
Thank you, Bob, and good afternoon, everybody. Just some quick announcements. As you may have heard, there's been an organizational change on campus. So Postdoctoral Scholar Affairs has officially moved to the Graduate Division. And it's really an effort to try and align our training and professional development functions across our 2 very important populations of postdoctoral scholars and graduate and professional students. All of the functions remain the same. The staff is the same. I want to shout out to Jen Bork, who you all know very well, and her incredibly capable staff for being so fantastic in everything that they've done and will continue to do. And thank, of course, Vice Chancellor of Research Sandra Brown for her incredible leadership over the years of this unit. We're very excited to look for synergies with Postdoctoral Scholar Affairs. The second thing we want to tell you is that we've now are moving more robustly towards the direction of centralized support for non-sponsored projects, particularly around training grants. So a new website has been launched. It is traininggrants.ucsd.edu. I believe it'll go in the chat here in a moment. And this website's really great. It's going to continue evolving. By the way, if you see your project not listed on there and would love to get your project highlighted, let us know. Send an email just to my office and I'll direct it to the right place. But right now, what you will do is you will go to this website because it'll help you to request an institutional letter of support for NIH T32 grants. I believe a deadline's in January 2022. That's the next deadline coming up. And there's another one coming up in May of 2022. So go to this website. This is a new process. If you're planning to submit for either of those deadlines, visit the website as soon as possible to complete an institutional letter of support request form, and we'll help you get everything started. This website will also tell you how to request matching student fellowship support for your proposals. And finally, we'll tell you about any upcoming training grant staff workshops or support workshops. I believe the next one is on December 1st, right at noon, from noon to 1:30. Okay, so we're super excited about this. And Bob, I'm going to throw it back to you.
All right, thank you, Dean Anthony. Now I would like to turn it over to our next presenter and co-host of today's town hall, Vice Chancellor for Research, Sandra Brown, to share research updates from Research Affairs.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bob. And congratulations to VC Matthews. What an accomplishment. It's going to be fun for everyone to have the trolley in place. And I'm so pleased to see the continuity of services with postdocs. But remember, there's another type of researcher here on campus. They're research scholars and visiting scholars. And we will continue in our office the resources for all of those scholars, as well as academic personnel support for research scientists and project scientists that are in the organized research units and centers that are run through the Office of Research Affairs. Also, we'll continue the administrative management for research scientist CAP through our office. Wanted to mention to people that we are further automating PI exceptions when needed for contracts and grants, and there'll be an announcement coming out shortly about that. A larger portion will be automated, so that should reduce workload for people. And then finally wanted to mention that we have orientation and professional development programming for research and visiting scholars that'll be available, and Jen Bork is still helping with that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just a reminder to people that research is back up and operating fully. There are no pandemic-related restrictions for visitors who are coming to campus, except all of the standard policies that you and I adhere to when we're on campus, things like face masks, symptom or exposure screens, et cetera. If you're bringing someone from the media to your laboratory or your research setting, those extra steps that you had to take during the pandemic have now been eliminated. We're back to the normal process where you would work with your department or your divisional communications staff and ensure that they're aware that media visitors will be coming to campus. All visitors, of course, especially those who are from out of the country, may need to have early restricted party screening. So those who are from out of the country in particular, and there are some other categories as well, that we easily do launch that effort through the website that's posted here through the export control. So what any researcher needs to do is to, regardless of what type of visiting person they have on campus, whether it's a visiting scholar, a visiting graduate student or postdoc, research scientist, et cetera, or volunteer, you want to inform your department. And then your department will notify the appropriate office as is listed on the table here. So number one thing, visitors adhere to the same requirements that you and I have on campus. Let your department know if you're bringing someone in to visit other than just for a single day, and they will notify the appropriate department. Next slide, please. There are some very important new federal requirements that can be met almost only by adhering to the policy that we have of 14.5 and 2. So I just wanted to take a moment to review that. If you're applying for a grant, you let your unit know so that they can create the quality record in the business office 14 days before the sponsor deadline. You can notify them months in advance if you know you're going to apply, but at least that's the minimum. And that's important because it lets a whole series of automated processes start to unfold. And your sponsored project office will then need to complete at least 5 days before the sponsor deadline, several specific tasks. They'll need to be sure that they've completed the guidelines, the sponsor proposal guidelines as needed, the face page for the grant, the budget and budget justification pages, at least the drafts if those are required, and then some very specific proposal requirements, 3 of which require both PI sign off and department chair sign off or unit head sign off, or could be the designee from the department chair. These include things like cost sharing, matching funds, etc. And the other things that need to be in that 5 days in advance are your biosketch or your CV if you're a consultant. Also, it's good if you can get your research plan draft in that 5 days in advance, and it's important for the recipient proposal packages to be complete. So now it's just the day before the application, that is 2 days before the due date, that you have to get the final version of your research plan in. And on the next slide, I'll share with you why that's so important. We have such a volume of grants going in at major deadline times that in order for us to ensure that every single grant can make it in on time, we need to get that 14.5 and 2 deadline completed. Without that, we are starting to have almost every major deadline a grant that might not make it in on time because it comes too late. It's really important, both because we can ensure the application gets in, but also it's important because there are many new federal requirements in particular, and in some cases, state requirements that have to be adhered to. And that's the only way we can ensure that that's done. We have some great departments. You'll see on the left side here, ophthalmology, Moore's Cancer Center, CogSci are doing very well with regard to these deadlines, but there are other departments that are doing not so well. And overall, we're at about 40% compliance with those 14.5 and 2 deadlines. In 2022, the applications will in fact be turned back if they aren't submitted in a timely fashion. Because to not have an opportunity to review the campus's risk for grants jeopardizes the campus as a whole. We have a faculty review committee that will be going over an exception request process for those that can't meet that 14.5 and 2, and it'll probably need to come from a department chair, such a request. So we're working with faculty now to figure out what's the best way to make sure that we can get these requirements met. And I would say that sometimes people think, oh, that 5 days in advance for the administrative materials from the department is onerous. But quite frankly, with the new quality system, most of those activities are automated, and only 1 out of 10 grants that are being submitted actually require department chair sign off on some critical areas. So with that, I'm going to shift now and introduce Assistant Vice Chancellor for Research Compliance and Integrity, Angie McMahill. And Angie's going to tell us about What are some new requirements that first come from the NIH, but will spread to other federal agencies? So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Angie.
Great, thank you, VCR Brown. We wanted to ensure that you are aware of the updates for NIH applications and research performance progress reports, so RPPRs, submitted for due dates on or after January 25th, 2022. And it's important to note from the NIH's perspective, these updates are clarifications and guidance to existing requirements, and they're being implemented to assist with transparency of reporting. There are some clarifications to the biosketch and the other support pages. However, the most significant changes include on other support, researchers must include support from foreign and domestic entities that have been made available to them, regardless if it's in-kind support or has a monetary value. There now also will be an electronic certification requirement for other support. So the principal investigators and senior key personnel will be required to electronically sign their other support. It's important to note that the individuals are certifying that the information is true, complete, and accurate. Next slide, please. The PI and senior key personnel will also be required to provide copies of contracts, grants, and agreements related to foreign appointments, employments, and activities that are reported on their other support. If the documentation is in a foreign language, the documentation will have to be translated into English before its submission. So that's a really big change for the universities. And finally, there is an immediate notification requirement for agencies for undisclosed other support. So the agency is requiring that once an institution determines that something was not reported on other support, and it should have been, the institution is now being required to immediately notify the agency of the deficiency. And what's important for you to hear about this is that the sponsored project offices are working together collaboratively to develop and implement a unified process to really address these changes. And we really want to minimize the administrative burden to the research community. There is a virtual training session that's being offered on November the 10th at 11 a.m. where the sponsored project offices will discuss the implementation plans. And if you haven't registered already and you're interested in attending, please email rci@ucsd.edu and we'll email you the registration link. And as VCR Brown mentioned, it's important to keep in mind that this approach that NIH is rolling out will likely be expanded to and adopted by other federal agencies. So with that, I'll turn it back to VCR Brown.
Thank you so much, Assistant Vice Chancellor McNahill. Next, we have a good announcement about a grant writing assistance program that we have, and the Senior Associate Vice Chancellor for Research, Miroslav Kristic, will share that with us. Miroslav?
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Brown. So the Chancellor has made an investment into grant writing services. And let me start on the left of this slide by explaining what it is. So the research development team at UCSD is small, very, very talented, but small. We have two people that many of you know, Sharon Franks and Wendy Groves, and there will be another hire. This is not a size that can support a campus of this size. So an investment is being made into being able to hire freelance grant writers who have the disciplinary expertise and also the knowledge of the agency. Our research development staff have great knowledge of the agency, but no two people will have the breadth of disciplinary expertise that the campus generates. So this is the rationale for this. The magnitude of the investment is such that we can give 3 to 10 awards per year of the size between 10K and 50K. You can imagine that if this were done on a first come first served basis, just based on a request, it might be gone within 2 weeks. So there will be some criteria taken into account in the decision, such as the complexity of the proposal, the readiness of the team, the feasibility of winning, the benefits to campus, the equity and diversity of the portfolio, the budget requested relative to the grant size, and so on. As far as the eligibility is concerned, in the middle of this slide, It's the large center type proposals that are the priority, or the major facility or research infrastructure initiatives, and these are the ones listed on the left, whereas the single investigator grants, regardless of size, SBIRs, STTRs, and so on, cannot be funded. The process for this is explained on the chart on the right. And this chart is really easy to understand if we take the analog of car insurance, how the car insurance kicks in to cover the repairs after an accident. So imagine the equivalent of an accident being a funding opportunity. What you do, and imagine the campus research development team being the insurance company. What you do first is you contact the research development team. The research development team informs you about the options regarding the so-called vendors, in other words, the grant writers. But you, as the PI, know who the best match may be, and you contact and interact with the vendors. You receive a quote, you come back to the research affairs, and we take care of the cost. So with that, I would like to turn it back over to you, Vice Chancellor Brown.
Thank you, Miroslav. It's a wonderful opportunity for faculty who are working on large projects, either within our campus or across other UCs or other types of institutions. So great opportunity. Encourage you all to take advantage of that. Next, we're going to hear two very positive updates from the Associate Vice Chancellor for Innovation and Commercialization, Paul Robin. Paul.
Cool, thank you, VCR Brown. So yeah, we're delighted to announce the grand opening of the Design and Innovation Building. And if you're watching the video that VC Matthews played, this is the building right there at the General Campus Station. So as you're leaving the station going north, you go right by the building. So it will be officially opening on the 18th. It has a whole bunch of resources that are there to cater to the innovation and entrepreneurial needs of the students, the faculty, and the staff, and in fact, the entire community at San Diego. So very briefly, it has an entrepreneurship center, which will host the community, investors, and management, and so on. It has the design lab. It has a whole series of maker spaces and prototyping and assembly spaces, and incubator and accelerator space for students. So we're delighted that it's going to be opening. And if we go to the next slide, these are just a few of the programs that we will be running in the building as soon as we get it all activated. The basement is moving over from the basement. It used to be 2 floors underneath the Mandeville Theatre, and now it's going to be on the 1st floor of this building. We're going to keep the name the basement because it's good branding. So this is where any student from any school department across the campus is welcome to come and learn the fundamentals of entrepreneurship, building their own project and their own company as they go. The Innovation for National Security program, we work together with all of our military partners in the area, so NIWIC, Miramar, Pendleton, and so on. They bring to us problem sets that they have, and teams of students get together and solve those problems. And in the process, they learn the culture of the DoD and also learn the fact that there are actually a lot of very exciting career opportunities for them right here in San Diego. And they develop the connections in order to be able to access those opportunities. The Essentials for Entrepreneurship course is something we've been running for a number of years. This is a 6-week course delivered by practitioners, CEOs, CFOs, etc., from the community. They come in and they tell their stories and teach the fundamentals of entrepreneurship, open to anybody. We have staff, students, faculty, and members from the community who basically walk in off the street. The current program is running right now, but there'll be another one running in the winter quarter. And then the innovation sprints, where we bring companies, local government, port, airport, etc., and they again come in with their problems, and teams of solutions our teams of students are invited to develop solutions to those. And again, they develop career opportunities. They learn the culture of these other organizations, and get to meet other students at the same time. And finally, I'd just like to say, by the way, thanks to AVC Bob Continetti, who has been leading a lot of the efforts in getting this building activated as well. So as you can see, we're all very excited by this building. And if you have any questions, you can contact me. Thank you. Back to you, VC O'Brien.
Yes, thank you, Paul. It's wonderful to have all these special services for students back up and rolling. And I believe that's the end of our research component. So back to you, Dr. Continetti.
Well, thank you, Vice Chancellor Brown and all of the presenters today. And yes, I am especially excited about the opening of the Design and Innovation Building. And it's exciting to hear about some of the programs that are going to be held there. Now it is time to turn the question and answer segment of this town hall. And for that purpose, I invite all of our panelists to turn on their videos. We've done this many times before, so we know that during registration, you, the attendees, have had an opportunity to submit questions for the panelists to answer. We've selected some of the most popular questions for the panel today that we're going to address. If you have a question now, please use the Q&A window to submit additional questions during the session, and our panelists will do their best to provide answers. Due to time limitations, we may not be able to get to all of your questions. However, we will do our best to post answers in the FAQ at returntolearn.ucsd.edu. So turning to the first question, this is for EVC Simmons and Senate Chair Javidi. Will an instructor still have the discretion to offer some portion of their course remotely in the winter quarter? This is noting that currently 49% can be virtual for in-person classes.
Let me just say, yes, that is the Senate policy on distance education. It still applies.
Thank you.
Yep, I confirm.
Great, thank you. The next question is for EVC Simmons and Dr. Sosha. Do you anticipate that the masking requirement for indoor instruction will be lifted for the winter quarter?
I do not at this time, but perhaps Dr. Sosha knows something that I don't.
No, I think it's realistic to think that we will begin the winter quarter with masking required. If we recall last year that we had a very significant spike of activity after the holiday period. Now we're in better shape than we were last year. We've got vaccination, but we also have Delta and some other things going on. So I believe we'll begin with masking, and then if things are going well, we'll try and lift things. For the remainder of the fall quarter, we will have classroom masking going on as well. We think that's the safest thing to do now, but we'll be trying to liberalize things as much as we safely can.
Thank you. The next question is for Dean Antony. Who is responsible for monitoring the daily symptom checker for graduate students?
Thank you. Great question. So the daily symptom checker, as a rule of thumb, is monitored by our colleagues in the health services part of this whole operation. And so if somebody triggers with a thumb that raises concern, they will be reached out to. They will be contacted by the health services individuals, our colleagues there. And in general, the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs Office is going to be monitoring non-compliance issues. And I do want to just say a note here. We have a number of students who, for a variety of reasons, may be non-compliant either with the exemption requests or the vaccination reporting. And so anything you can do as our colleagues to help students, remind them of their obligations to be compliant with this mandate is really, really helpful. We certainly want to avoid having students get any kind of academic hold placed on their records as a result of non-compliance. Hope that answers the question, Bob.
Thank you, Dean Antony. The next question is for Dr. Sosha. Does a student have to provide a note from a medical provider to have their absence from class counted as excused?
No, we actually removed that requirement in the early part of the pandemic. We don't want students who are symptomatic moving around campus, picking up medical notes, or instead actually going to classes when they're ill because they've the inconvenience of getting a medical note. So we made a decision early on in the pandemic, and the Academic Senate had a chance to weigh in, that medical notes are no longer required. We're trusting the students to give us an honest answer regarding their symptoms and illness.
Thank you, Dr. Sosha. And now we have a question about the end game with respect to the pandemic for Dr. Schooley. At what infection rate, cases per 100,000 people, for example, will we consider the pandemic over?
This virus has entered the population. It's going to be with us for hundreds of years. What I do think we're going to see, though, is as more immunity in the population evolves with vaccination and with recurrent rounds of infection, like the other 3 coronaviruses that have been circulating in the human population, we'll see periodically the virus come through and cause illness. The virus is going to cause the most morbidity for people, as other viruses do, who are at the ends of the age spectrum. In this case, particularly people who are older, or people who have underlying conditions that involve organ system damage or immunodeficiency. The pandemic itself, in terms of what we've been seeing with filled ICUs and that sort of thing, I think will gradually be less and less of a threat, although in places where vaccination rates are low, and there are parts of the US where that's the case, it will continue to be possible for the virus to come back and cause shortages of hospital beds and so forth, probably for the next year or two. Places like Idaho and Washington State most recently saw that. I don't think we're going to see that happen here in Southern California right now, unless a new variant emerges, but we're going to have to keep our eye on that because this virus is still in a fairly metastable relationship with the human population and can evolve over time. So we have much better tools to deal with it. We have to keep our eyes open, but I don't want to make a prediction about which month and which year we're going to be able to declare the pandemic over.
Well, thank you for that sobering message, but it's a reality. The next question is for Vice Chancellor Brown. Will we still need to submit new or update our existing research ramp-up plans in the future?
Just as with many other things, and you can tell from Dr. Schooley's response, we always want to be prepared for any emergent problems. And so your research ramp-up plans, it is advised that you keep these updated. And the reason for that is, should there be another circumstance where we would need to cut back on activity in the research setting, we'll have a ready way to do that. Now, that said, I just want to remind everyone that the work location status form is required for everyone on campus, for faculty and for staff and employees. So that's a very important form because it tells us where people are and when they're there. And it's a way for us to quickly notify you should the virus be detected in your building.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Brown. The next question is for Dr. Sosha, and this is something I think you addressed to some extent in your presentation, but could you please clarify or outline the current testing requirements for unvaccinated employees?
Sure. Unvaccinated employees, the unique requirement for them is to test twice a week, and that should be no less than 3 days apart and no more than 5 days apart. Individuals who are rarely coming to campus should get a test within 48 hours prior to coming onto campus and the day they arrive. But for unvaccinated folks coming regularly to campus, please, it's twice a week testing. That'll be ongoing at least through fall and the early part of winter quarter and possibly all of next year. So, and you can do that testing through the vending machines, or if you're not comfortable with that, you can do that on the Price Center on campus.
Thank you, Dr. Sosha. And don't go away, though, because the next question is for you as well.
Sure.
What are the current guidelines regarding food at campus events and meetings?
This was just modified recently, which is another sign of how well we are doing. So vaccinated individuals are allowed to briefly lift masks for eating and drinking at campus meetings and events. So that is a change. It's a good sign.
No, that's great. No, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sosha. And it looks like I think we're going to move to wrap up early today. We've really addressed the most significant questions that we had received, and we will continue to update the FAQ on the return to learn. website as well, and we'll post a recording of today's town hall as well. So we're going to give you a few minutes of your time back, which I'm sure you will appreciate. But I would like to thank at this point the presenters and our guests for sharing their time and information with us today. And I thank you, the faculty and researchers of UC San Diego, for attending today, working together as a community during these challenging times. We had more than 330 attendees today, and I believe that these town halls have become an important part of how we've stayed united as a community during this challenging period. Again, to help improve them, we encourage you to complete the post-event survey that you'll be sent shortly to help us continue to refine our communications. The next Return to Learn Town Hall for staff will be on December 8th. So please visit the Return to Learn website to register. The link has just been inserted into the chat. So with that, this concludes today's Return to Learn Faculty and Research Town Hall. So I want to thank you again, ask you to please take care, stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you all on campus again soon. Take care.